Welcome everybody to the TDCR investment webinar. We're doing this from two different locations. We're doing this from Sydney, Australia, where I've got to my left John Marcos, and to my right Stephen Conroy. And joining us from Melbourne, we have John Fenga, who's wearing a dashing suit as usual, and Jeffrey Cole, who's just arrived on the island from Los Angeles.
Good morning.
Morning.
TDCR is creating an innovative platform for the management and functionality of cryptocurrency. As we know, crypto has been around for some time, and we are sitting at the crossroads, adoption into mainstream life. We've all seen news of governments setting forth a plan to have crypto as a part of the everyday workings, and we've seen some countries already adopt their crypto strategies, and some are taking some flack for it, but the early adopters are generally pretty successful at ruffling feathers and getting the ball rolling, so we thank them. For all of the crypto investors out there, we're excited to bring these innovations to market. TDCR is the result of years of research and development, looking at where traditional banking has succeeded and where the future of payments and technology will incorporate these digital currencies. We've had a number of people write in questions. We've had a lot of overlapping questions as usual. There's a little yellow button on the website, or orange on some, that is a messenger service that will allow you to write in. So if you have any burning questions or want to respond to anything, please let us know. Anything that we don't answer here, we'll make sure that we address in future email communications and additions on the website, and we'll try to make sure that we address everything. So very quickly, I want to go through and introduce everyone. Jeffrey Cole, I'm going to go left to right on my screen. Jeffrey Cole is joining us from California. Jeffrey is the creator of the Center for the Digital Future, which is at the University of Southern California, Annenberg School of Communications. Jeff is a global advisor to top CEOs, change makers, politicians, and governments. Jeff is in Australia working with the leadership teams of large organizations, including Telstra. And I'm sure he'll be on another frequent flyer collection over to Europe, where he works with UK politicians, over to Sweden, where he works with Ericsson, before going back to the United States. Jeff has been an advisor to 2 American presidents, as he likes to highlight, not the latest former President Trump. Has worked with Australian politicians, including the gentleman to my right, Stephen Conroy. John Fenga, in the dashing suit in Melbourne, is the CEO and founder of TDCR. John is a tech entrepreneur, somebody who's been looking at the pay tech and fintech space for a long time. John has created platforms for payments, global payment solutions, and has recently been involved in media and entertainment technology, as well as working on this crypto platform to innovate that industry. To my left is John Marcos. John has spent the last 35 plus years in law. John was the managing partner of Hickson's Law in Sydney, Australia, and is a keen sailor, having been the chief commodore of the Sydney Cruising Yacht Club and kicked off a few of our Sydney to Hobarts, which is always some entertaining storytelling. Stephen Conroy, former federal minister for communications and an Australian senator. Stephen has seen Australia through major changes and digital innovations, from banking, from online gaming and gambling, as well as media. And that includes intellectual property rights and some significant legislative changes as we've transitioned from satellite to digital broadcast. Stephen is a valuable member of the team for those reasons, as we look at this disruptive space and how it's going to need to fit with existing legislation and where people are picking holes in it. For my part, I'm the talker. My background is in communications and brand development marketing. Proud to be here with this accomplished group. So good morning, everyone. So jumping into some questions, which we've had quite a lot of. I'm going to start off with a very quick, what is TDCR? I think that's a good place to start. And John, if you don't mind just giving us a quick rundown of what this platform is and what we're looking to accomplish.
Okay, let's start off with the really easy question then. So what is TDCR? So TDCR, I'd like to think of it, it's basically a payment rail. It's a cryptocurrency payment rail where we enable merchants, customers, services, telcos, and we place them all on the one network, whereas they're all interacting with each other. So what we're doing is simplifying the crypto payment process. Rather than going through a anonymous transaction, we place them all on the same network so they can talk to one another. So the technology itself is a hybrid of a decentralized and centralized payment platform, if that made any sense.
And from the technology perspective, where are we at today, and where do we need to be at for the launch of our proof of concept, which we have as a part of the roadmap?
Yep, I'd suggest we're 80% of the way there. We have a core banking platform that we're using as a donor platform as part of our development. This gives us all of the regulatory and compliance elements that we need in order to safeguard our future in this space. And the team's working hard to have this finished. We're looking well, our goal is to have a pilot program running first quarter of 2023, or at least beginning in December of this year.
Excellent. And just before we jump over to a few of the other things you mentioned, what does a pilot program look like?
So the the pilot program is basically going to be a focus group. Ideally, we'll choose one or maybe two markets, Australia and perhaps the US or Singapore. We'll encourage a large number of merchants to simply download the app, set up a profile and open up an account with TDCR, as well as customers, and allow them to transact with their local cafes, their local businesses and so on, and spend their crypto the same way they would normally spend their fiat currency. So our goal is to have the pilot running for a number of months, perhaps 4 months. We would then evaluate the success of the program, and if there were any learnings that we need to take from that. And hopefully by June, we will start rolling out the operational platforms.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
If I could just add to that, you know, I think crypto for the last few years has been like the Wild West, the town with lawlessness, dead bodies in the street. And finally, the sheriff shows up and starts knocking heads together, provides order and confidence. And I think that's what TDCR really brings to this, the sheriff's in town.
Right.
Now,
yeah, excellent. Well, that's exactly where we've been going. From a team perspective, John, I know that question has come up quite a bit. Who's on the team? Who's on the team? You see the core team here. Can you just describe what the team is comprised of on the tech side?
Yeah, certainly. So the tech team is actually quite complex, but I'll try and break it down as simply as possible. Apart from myself, there are two driving forces. One is the systems architect, and then the data scientist. So we look at everything hypothetically, obviously, because a lot of this stuff that we're building, we're trailblazing. You know, it doesn't exist, so we're having to come up with the thought process and then map it out and understand if that process will work in today's society. Because in order to enable people to use it, it needs to be simple. It needs to be something that feels familiar. And to make something simple, it usually is a complex process. So, so these two individuals are extremely intelligent and without them, this system would have been a long way behind. They drive the team of developers. The majority of the developers are all based here in Australia. We're trying to keep this as an Australian owned and built platform. But yeah, so we have a team of developers that work solely on this, and we will be expanding that team considerably over the coming months because our timelines are aggressive. We obviously we've let the cat out of the bag of what we're doing, which is considerably different to what the market is currently doing today. And we want to stay ahead of the curve. So we want to be quite aggressive.
I think
Let
also
them out into the sunlight occasionally.
Well, every once in a while we open up the windows and
these are guys that have dealt with very complicated global systems and critical data as well.
Correct. So,
Data, which sort of gets us to the even more complicated part, and that's law and politics. And I know that Jeff Cole has a lot of experience in dealing with global leaders on adopting disruptive technology. John Marcos has a lot of experience from a legal perspective in fitting programs like this to existing law and helping to refine law. And that's also where Stephen comes in. So we've got a bit of a trio of power players in this country who have dealt with the world about. So John, if I might ask John Marcos, what excites you about TDCR and where we're going from a legislative perspective?
Look, what excites me about the concept is it provides a security in an environment that is not secure. And if we look at it, and taking the Wild West analogy from our dear friend from the States, Jeff, it concerns me that what's happening now is happening with great speed, but no controls. And even the governments are trying to keep pace with it. We've gone from something that's been around for a long time to only very recently been introduced into the mainstream, and Main Street hasn't caught up with it. So the problems you see are that there are a number of significant countries with government inquiries. Ours is included in that. Now, Senate inquiries still struggling to get on top of it, but when you see some of the initial pronouncements, and Steve can correct me on this, but their concerns are the security of the currency. Their concerns are access to it in terms of a jurisdictional point of view, and I'll come to that in a second. But more importantly, they're trying to work out how this thing can be regulated. And if we remember, these are digital currencies. They're not something you can pick up and put in your pocket and walk around and then pay in that tangible currency. And it's not based on a regulation that says, well, we set our currency value at this. It's pretty much free form. All of these things have to be adjusted to by the governments that will attempt to regulate this. And the biggest problems, as I said before, security. We see so much in the press about people losing their wealth and huge amounts of money, and now prosecutions in the States, for the latest being in excess of $3.5 billion ripped off. Once that goes, that goes. The concept here is to create some vaults and ways in which these currencies can be stored within reserves that are within jurisdictions that will comply, and I think gives a whole lot more security than has ever existed before, but puts in place a framework that I think everything can work rather than be the Wild West.
And thank you very much, John. That's very detailed and important to understand. And that brings up the question of risk. And so if I might just skip over to Jeff Cole for a second, when you're looking at technologies and advising companies and governments, where does the appetite for risk come in, and how is that adjusted for when we look at the trends in the market for what people are demanding, because people are demanding to use crypto?
Great question. Incidentally, I can't let go unsaid. My friend John, who did such a great description, I didn't know, John, you have the best job title I have ever heard. I want to be a chief commodore.
It's not quite that, but yeah.
I don't know what I have to do to get that. To your question, Steve, I'm interested in disruption. And I'm interested in how and why leading companies and industries fight disruption. And it's not just done from competition, it's done from fear. One of the great themes of disruption is disruption almost never comes from where it should. If you look at online commerce, it should have been Walmart who should have led the online commerce world. Instead, it took an upstart who really was only selling books, Amazon. If you look at music, it should have come from Warner Music and Sony Music. Instead, it came from Steve Jobs and Apple with downloading, a technology that didn't last very long, and then Spotify and streaming. And if you look at video streaming, it should have been movie studios. Instead, it was Netflix. And in electric vehicles, it should have been GM and Ford, not this upstart that really had no business even being in the automobile business, Tesla, that's now worth more than every other automobile company on earth. And then a recent example, as we went into lockdown for COVID, it should, the video conferencing service we all should have turned to should have been from the Silicon Valley machine, should have been Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, Google Meets. Instead, it was a new, fresh player. So I'm really interested in that theme, that disruption comes from where, not from where it's expected. Very briefly, within crypto, of course, the early efforts from the established bank and financial community were to discredit it. They just didn't know what it was. They weren't sure if they could control it. It was painted as a tool of drug dealers, money launderers, terrorists. Then it went into the gold rush, get rich quick days. And you had to have the stomach for investing in something that could go up 4,000% one day and now 95%. But now we really are seeing the fundamentals of a true disruptor of financial services. And you're seeing real players, governments pay attention. A couple of countries have adopted it. Our Federal Reserve in the United States is preparing for it. And I think, you know, the time for crypto has come, and even the disrupted understand this is more than just a novelty or a toy.
Excellent. Absolutely. Absolutely true that disruption doesn't come from within, and make some extremely valid points around that. And now we're at a point where, you know, we are one player who's looking at this space. There are platforms in crypto management. They're called wallets. I know that we're getting questions around what's the difference between Tdcr and what does a wallet do and how does it work, which a lot of is addressed on our website. But John, do you want to just give a really quick one, and before I ask Steve Conroy a question?
Yep. Okay. Yes. So I guess a wallet has come into the fold in the last couple of years, probably close enough to the decade, where a number of companies took the initiative to give bank-like features on a simple application where millennials or the people who were adopting technology faster than anyone else wanted to carry around cash on their phone rather than in their pocket. So cryptocurrency lends itself to this because the blockchain itself is used as a transactional tool, but you still need to hold your cryptocurrency somewhere. A lot of people, you know, if you listen to the horror stories in the early days where people were putting their crypto on USB keys, and they would misplace their USB keys and they would lose millions of dollars. So wallets were created to be able to store and hold your cryptocurrency keys. Now, the problem there is that the blockchain solution is, the blockchain platform is absolutely amazing. It's almost unhackable. However, wallets are very easy to hack. They're a simple platform that holds all of your data on a server somewhere in the cloud where a hacker can easily address. Our platform is a little different. We're closer to a financial services such as the banks. We hold accounts that are structured very similar to your online banking account. So there is without going too technical, there is a very big difference between the two. It's like buying, and this would be a really bad analogy, I guess, but it's like when you used to buy software and you could buy a light version or a pro version. The light version would be a wallet and the pro version would be what we're putting forward.
And I know that functionality is a really big point to making something mainstream accessible, and using these existing banking features is where a lot of this has really come from. So so back to the risks of legislation. We've seen countries say no crypto entirely. We've seen countries say yes to crypto. Stephen and I were just chatting earlier about El Salvador and what's happening down there. We've seen the Florida state government say, pay your taxes in crypto. That's a fun one.
New York mayor says, pay me in crypto.
New York mayor says, pay me in crypto. So what are we looking at from a risk perspective around changes in legislation, and why does TDCR feel like a right solution for moving forward?
So look, the key desires of government is always to manage and have a line of sight. And at its core, TDCR provides the line of sight. Governments are going to be paranoid about, and I've sat in the room, I've been part of discussions, they're going to be paranoid about, as Jeff mentioned, the organised crime, the terrorism financing. And so we have inquiries right now in Australia about having transparency around crypto transactions. So governments are going to increasingly demand this. So I was talking with John yesterday, we were talking about this is the sweet spot. TDCR has come into the market at the sweet spot where governments don't want to ban it, they accept that people want to use it, and they're desperate to find a way to have a line of sight. And this platform gives security, it gives transparency, and can give governments confidence not to do the typical knee-jerk reaction, which is to say, stop, no. And if you look at Uber coming into the market, I mean, Uber wasn't actually legal, in most of the markets that they put it in. Here in Australia, we've had protests in the street from taxi drivers wanting to protect the value of their licenses. And Uber just ploughed on through because people wanted to use the convenient new platform. And TDCR is the platform which will allow the mainstream use of crypto payments.
And Jeff, I'm guessing you've seen this before in other seminars and other advisory exercises around the world, with how disruption then gets accepted once the population demands it. Are we there with crypto?
We're pretty darn close. I mean, people are beginning to understand that something more than hype, something more than criminal activities involved. The fact that governments are actually accepting it, some companies are beginning to accept it for payment, is very powerful. And to build on what Stephen said, even the industries, financial services, their first inclination, like taxi drivers, was to have their competition made illegal. Tesla not only was an innovator in electric use instead of fuel, but Tesla sold its cars directly to consumers. And automobile dealers went to court trying to have that declared illegal. And now I think those barriers are starting to be removed. People really understand at the highest levels of government and industry that there's something here, and we have to really control it in a way that's beneficial to the public, not necessarily beneficial to banks.
Absolutely. And John Marcos and I have conversations all the time about compliance. regulation, from within our own business and how we're developing and what we're putting forth. What is this going to look like for corporations as we see that they are accepting crypto, travel agencies and whatnot? And what does that mean for their internal work and how we're going to cut through to make sure that our platform it leapfrogs disruption?
Who was
Sorry.
that suggesting?
That was a question for John.
I just think the momentum's here.
Yeah.
And the reason we're so active in trying to get this forward and get to the proof of concept phase is that we think we've got a leading edge or a prime mover advantage or a first mover advantage. Those sorts of things don't last long in a marketplace that's so excited and agitated as it is now, with everyone trying to sort of find their feet. I think for corporations, they will follow very much what the populace wants to do. I think Jeff's comments were illustrative of where the tensions go and the dynamics will go. It'll just follow night does day, but we need to sort of be there in the context of helping this framework get set up so that we try and create that security, I think, and that comfort or that security will give the corporations comfort as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess when it comes down to who are the customers of those corporations, crypto has a certain defined customer. We mentioned some of the very, very dark web situations, but there are a lot of people that don't live in the dark web that hold a lot of crypto and want to use it. How will the customer of cryptocurrency and the customer of TDCR change as we move forward to our proof of concept? Are we looking at moms and dads and everyone out there? I guess, John.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, and this comes to the question: is why build TDCR in the first place? If you're new to cryptocurrency, and a lot of people who, like myself, bought crypto and very quickly realized that there wasn't a lot you could actually do with the wealth that you had. You couldn't really spend it unless you attached a credit card to it and turned it into a fiat. And look, I'm already paying $5.50 for a coffee in Melbourne as it is. Once you use that, it's up around $7. So, $7 for a coffee is unheard of. Why build? It's purely for that. We want to give people the option to actually walk in and have more access points to spend it like a normal currency. Initially, I believe the customer base will be the mums and dads that bought cryptocurrency because they thought it was a good investment. They've still got it, and this will give them a way to actually use that wealth that they're creating as they would their normal fiat. However, I think it will expand. The younger generation, especially millennials, they put more currency in or hold more faith in crypto than they do bullion. So I think they will be very early adopters to this. But I think as more and more merchants and businesses come on and start acting as an access point, I think you'll find that demographics will change. There will be people in the Philippines who want to do money remittances through this because they could remit quite quickly and easily. The fees are considerably smaller than using a Western Union or so on. And then they can then just use it to purchase their groceries and so on within country. So I think the demographics will change dramatically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone's got mobile phones, and the cost to upkeep cash and coin for governments is massive. And we often don't appreciate the cost of what it takes to run those infrastructures. But as the world changes, we can see countries like El Salvador, like the massive crypto investments being made in Brazil, where people and access is very important. And obviously TDCR becomes a global tool that connects those things in a rail where we are the three critical features of a rail.
Yeah,
it certainly is an exciting time. And Jeff, how do you see the changing face of the crypto customer from the Americans' perspective, as the governments are now saying, hey, pay your taxes in this currency that doesn't technically exist in our country?
Well, first, just building on what was said, the more the attention properly moves from people getting rich fast on crypto to foreign workers living thousands of miles from home so they can send money back to their families and having to give up 20 to 25% of everything they send, we'll really begin to see the advantages of crypto. I think all of these technologies, with few exceptions, start among those who are most comfortable with digital, tend to be younger. There still are people over the age of 80 who will not use automatic teller machines. There are people over the age of 60 who will not do online banking. That will come, and I think we'll see our grandparents using crypto, but it's really going to start with those who have a need to move money around in new ways, and particularly in investments, and those who are comfortable. And that's where that's where Facebook started. That's where almost every, not that that's an example you want to emulate, but as far as acceptance, that's where almost every digital technology starts. And it will spread out quickly when people see the usefulness. One of the things coming out of COVID, it's pushed us to do things we weren't comfortable with. Some people buying online who never had bought online before. Cashlessness, in the early days of COVID, we were afraid cash might contain the virus and merchants didn't want to interact with us. And we pushed people into cashlessness. I think you're going to see a new willingness to look at some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even my mom doesn't know how to make a phone call anymore. It's all FaceTime, which is really inconvenient sometimes. Back to the business of TDCR. So as we've outlined before, we're in the process of development, steaming towards a proof of concept towards the end of this year. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. It was very deliberate that we went to on market, and very deliberate that we wanted to crowdfund as an opportunity. And we chose on market after looking at a few here and internationally. Can we just have a quick word about investment and crowdfunding and that opportunity that we're putting forth? And I believe that I'm required to inform people that investment is risky, as we all know, and investment in tech is risky. So please make sure you're mindful to read disclosure statements and risk statements.
Yeah. Was that a question to me, Steve?
Yeah, so crowdfunding. So the reason for crowdfunding and why are we excited about that?
So look, I think this is a pretty cutting edge platform that we're putting forward. It's quite modern, and I think in the theme of things, looking at crowdfunding, which is becoming more and more popular, was really appealing on a number of fronts, because this actually gave the opportunity for the people who we are going to ask to become customers and merchants and so on, to actually own a part of the company that they'll be working on or supporting. So and this is nothing new. A lot of companies go to a public offering, and a lot of people who use that product tend to buy it. But the reason why I really like the crowdfunding opportunity is because we want to be an Australian company, and why not have Australian mums and dads get involved in this as an early stage investor, and they can then, a lot of these people may be small business owners who will then adopt the product, and then they become our best salespeople, because if they grow our business, they actually grow their own wealth. If the business becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So if we have 1,000 new shareholders, those 1,000 people may tell 2 people, and those 2 people will tell 2 people. So our goal is to use the crowdfunding almost as a marketing tool, as well as a form of raising capital.
Absolutely. And it is exciting. It is exciting to be able to put it out to allow the Australian population and the global population of sophisticated investors, and in Australia, all investors, to come into an early stage on something that's very, it's a fast moving market, tremendous potential, and to become part of the next version of banking, payments, and financial products. From a regulatory perspective on the investments, Stephen, what got you excited about crowdfunding this opportunity, and how have you seen that as a changing face of investing in Australia?
Look, I think the success of this crowdfunding model speaks for itself. If you look at the track record, it's just fantastic, and I think an opportunity for as many people in some closed room with a few mates that dole it out to their close family and friends. The opportunity to just put it out there for everybody who is interested and that hears about it by word of mouth, and all the other digital marketing that's going on around this is just fantastic. I mean, we want this to be universally adopted, and I think it's a great way of saying that we want as many small, medium investors as possible to be part of this from the beginning.
Absolutely. And what does that investment picture look like?
Sorry.
What is the picture of investing in this platform look like at this point? We've issued the EOI, which is available on the on-market website, and what's the time frame for opportunity?
So at the moment, we're at expression of interest. So a lot of people are expressing, and we've had an amazing reaction to that, which is quite exciting. And the team at On Market are quite excited about it as well. At the end of the month, so on the 31st, we'll open up a private room for anyone who has actually submitted an EOI. That will be open for 7 days. And that will be purely and simply for anyone who's submitted a form. So the general public will not be able to acquire any shares or buy any equity in the company unless they have completed an EOI during those 7 days. There's limited number of shares, obviously, and at the end of that 7 days, a private room will be open, and then it will be marketed to the greater community to take part in it. So and that will be probably open for either one, if we sell all of the shares that are on offer, or two, we run its course for the 3 weeks.
And once we get to that proof of concept, what can investors expect out of the development and getting to the commercial model maturing for the business to be receiving revenue, and then future growth opportunities?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously, when you're going through the process of acquiring the shares, you'll be privy to an offer document, and there's a lot of information in there that will talk about our timeline and so on. But just in brief, our proof of concept, as I explained earlier, will begin at the first quarter of next year. We'll run it for a couple of months. Upon a successful POC, we will then start looking at a couple of countries that we will earmark in the offer document. Our plan for growth is to look at an IPO, and that would be on an aggressive timeline in sometime in 2024, providing we meet all our milestones. But that is for a form of growth. That may change. There could be, anything could change, obviously. But at this point in time, our goal is to look at something like an IPO in early 2024.
And as this industry evolves, we're going to see a lot of things regarding, even down to the details where the US dollar is backing some coins, and how we start to adopt our technology to offer the stable coins that people are investing in, into the technology and whatnot.
Yeah. Sorry, just to expand on what you're saying there. So our aim is to look at a select number of coins. Obviously, there's thousands of coins now in circulation. We don't want to have 1,000 wallets available for you to download. We will select a certain number, which will be a high number, including stable coins. One thing I wanted to premise, there's a lot of chatter and marketing about the central bank releasing a digital version of the currency. And I did notice that on our website, there was a quote saying that we are QFS, so Quantum Financial Services, which is basically that. We're not that. We are not associated with any of the central banks. We will operate independently and use a stable coin or a cryptocurrency as the form of the currency that will be traded on our platform. I did want to make that clear because a lot of people, once we start talking about regulation and so on, will associate us with something that's on the news items today.
Yeah, excellent. That's true. Well, we've got quite a number of people online, and we've got questions that are still coming in around functionality, around fees and commercial structures. More communication is going to come out around the platform and how that stuff works. Obviously, we're focused right now on the core business and development side, and so please feel free to keep sending in those questions, and we'll make sure that we answer them in good time with other communications. I think what we'll do right now is just get some closing remarks from each of our panelists to cap off what we're up to, and then hopefully be in touch with everyone as we get forward. So if you have any further questions, keep them coming in. Keep writing in on the website and on LinkedIn, as well as through the on-market platform, and we'll address those. But if we can move to some closing remarks, John Marcos, why don't you kick us off?
I returned to some of the things that were mentioned, but even what I focused on before. One of the things we've got with this concept is it's a first mover advantage. They don't hang around for long, those advantages, if you don't react to it and develop and get to the point of the proof of concept and then a minimum viable product. So speed counts, and the funding for this will count, and that's why we're here in this forum. In terms of the model, I haven't seen anything in the marketplace that speaks to addressing the security and those sorts of issues that this concept does address. And for me, the very nature of what we're doing is publicizing the concept and talking about it could give others the idea. And I suspect the risk is that someone comes in and tries to compete with us. But of course, building on a base platform we already own is going to help a great deal for that. It's an exciting marketplace. It's an exciting thing to see it come as a part of the mainstream. And while we'd like to be a part of it, we think we've got some real benefits for the general user community of cryptocurrency. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I saw Jeff Cole smiling a little bit during that. I think Jeff wants to expand on some of those points.
I'm really dazzled at the quality of the team John has put together, the real innovative technology. I haven't met some of these developers who I don't think you really do let out into the sunlight. Maybe I will at some point. But this isn't, when I say the opportunity is now and the time has come, that doesn't mean buy in the next 30 minutes but it means that this is really a well-reasoned opportunity and filling a need that not drug dealers or money launderers need, but the public needs. And I think this is really a great answer to that problem. I'm delighted to be affiliated.
Absolutely. And since Stephen and Jeff come as a package deal, consultant and the politician, please.
Yeah, no, look, Jeff's absolutely right. I mean, the thing that attracted me to Jeff the many, many years ago that I first met him and listened to him was that point he made, which is, you know, the banks, the credit card companies, they should be doing this. They're not. And the same way Tesla made Holden and Ford look like fools, this is an opportunity to really get on board in a way that is truly disruptive to those financial institutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from my perspective, I started my career working in entertainment, and that's a very binary transaction. You buy a ticket, you show up. You buy an album, you listen to it, and the relationships are made very one-on-one and in the real world. Cryptocurrency has been terrifying for me as a user because it doesn't exist in the real world. I can't spend it without converting it. I don't understand how I need to have 3 or 4 different apps to keep myself online and protected. And so when we started to formulate with the team what TDCR looks like, I was excited because I could relate it instantly to how I lived in the world, and not how a high school kid who seems to have millions of dollars in some bank somewhere can brag, but how I need to transact with my paying my bills and making my investments. So I was very excited, and I've been very excited in how the team has been taking existing technology and architecting different systems for security and payments, and how I'm going to move around the world and use it. So I'm very excited for how consumers will engage with this platform. I'm excited for how it's designed, how it looks, and how it feels, and I just can't wait to get it out there into the world. It's going to be pretty awesome. So John Fenga, as the guy who brought this idea out years ago, what's your closing comment for today's session?
Look, I'm excited, obviously, with the team. I'm humbled sitting alongside all of you. However, when you look at the market, I 3 points really stand out, actually 4 points, but access, speed, and security in the cryptocurrency market. Right now we have no access. There are a very limited number of places where you can spend any cryptocurrency. Speed, cryptocurrency transactions take a long time. I'm not sure if anyone has actually tried to do a transaction for a small amount. It can take up to 7 days for a transaction, and they're expensive. And obviously security, as we've highlighted throughout the conversation here, by increasing security, it also increases confidence in the market as well, and enables people to feel comfortable transacting, that if they make a mistake, it's okay. Whereas currently, if you make a mistake, it's not okay. You've just lost everything you've just sent. And the other thing, which I think is quite an important one, I am for climate change. I believe that our footprint is important. And if you look at the cryptocurrency market and the growth that it's experiencing at the moment, and the number of new mining companies popping up, and miners, the average, homeowner now is building mines in their garage. And I think Elon had said it recently that he's no longer allowing any Bitcoin transactions to buy a Tesla until they get a grip on the amount of energy that they're consuming per transaction. And it's staggering, the amount of energy that's consumed. So, by offering a hybrid, we can actually get a grip on that. And to me, that's an important focus. But look, I'm excited. I think the team's working hard. I want to use this forum as a way to communicate in the future as well. So the next forum will probably be with the tech team. I'll let them out of the garage and out of the dungeons, and
send them a camera.
Yeah, and allow them to actually to correspond. And that would be a much detailed, granular discussion around the technology itself and why. But for the purposes of today's discussion, I think we've covered as many questions as we can. I've been following the questions on the site. And Steve, you've managed to articulate the questions in a manner that looked like a conversation. So thank you for that. But yeah, I'm extremely excited to what the next couple of months bring.
Absolutely. So if anyone's missed anything, there's going to be some playback, and there'll be some additional content made out of this, and we will get to everyone's questions. So if you have anything that comes up from any of our discussions or any of the content, please don't be shy. Want to just thank our friends at On Market who are watching, and John Marcos, Stephen Conroy, John Fenga. Thank you guys very much. Have a nice day, and be in touch.
Thank you very much.